The stagecoach lay on its side like a dying beast, wheels still spinning slowly in the hot Montana sun. And Rebecca Turner stood beside the wreckage, holding a crying infant that did not belong to her, while vultures circled overhead. Samuel Jennings saw her from half a mile away, a dark silhouette against the bleached landscape, and something in his chest tightened at the wrongness of the scene. He had been tracking 3 men who had robbed the bank in Dillon 2 days prior, following their trail through the scrubland south of town. But he had not expected to find this. The deputy urged his horse forward, his hand instinctively moving to the rifle on his saddle, scanning the area for threats as he approached. The woman turned at the sound of hoofbeats, and Samuel found himself looking into the most striking pair of green eyes he had ever seen. They were wide with exhaustion and something else, determination maybe, or defiance. Dust covered her face and dress, a dark blue traveling outfit now torn at the shoulder. The baby in her arms could not have been more than a few months old, wrapped in a pink blanket that was cleaner than anything else in sight. "Are you hurt?" Samuel called out as he drew closer, his eyes taking in the scene. The driver lay motionless 20 feet away, clearly dead from the unnatural angle of his neck. Another body, a woman in a fine dress, was partially visible inside the overturned coach. "No," the woman said, her voice hoarse but steady, "but they are. The driver died when we crashed, Mrs. Henderson. She was the baby's mother. She made it a few minutes longer." She looked down at the infant, whose cries had subsided to whimpers. "She asked me to take care of Rose, made me promise." Samuel dismounted, ground tying his horse before approaching carefully. "What happened here?" "3 men stopped us about an hour north of here. They wanted the strongbox the driver was carrying. He tried to outrun them, took a turn too fast." Rebecca swayed slightly on her feet, and Samuel reached out to steady her with a hand on her elbow. The touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, and he pulled back quickly. "You need water," he said, moving to his horse to retrieve his canteen. "And shade. There is nothing but sun out here." "The baby," Rebecca said, accepting the canteen but not drinking. "She needs water too." "She is too young for water," Samuel said gently. "How long since she nursed?" Rebecca's face crumpled slightly. "I do not know. Mrs. Henderson was nursing her when the men stopped us. That was hours ago. She must be so hungry." Samuel rubbed his jaw, thinking. The nearest town was Dillon, a good 4 hours' ride north, and that was for a man on horseback. With a woman and an infant, it would take much longer. "We need to get moving. Dillon has a doctor, and there is a woman there, Mrs. Chen, who just had a baby herself. She might be able to help." "I cannot leave them like this," Rebecca said, looking at the bodies. "It is not right." "I will come back for them," Samuel promised. "Right now the living need help. That baby needs food and you need rest. The dead will keep." Rebecca looked down at little Rose, whose face was scrunched up and red, preparing for another wail. "You are right. I am sorry. I promised her. Mrs. Henderson. She was so scared and she begged me to keep Rose safe." "Then that is what we will do," Samuel said firmly. He moved to the overturned coach, searching through the wreckage. He found a carpet bag that must have belonged to Rebecca and another smaller bag with baby clothes and blankets. "Is this yours?" "Yes, thank you," Rebecca said, watching as he tied the bags to his saddle. "I am Rebecca Turner. I was on my way to Dillon to take a position as a schoolteacher. Samuel Jennings. I am the deputy in Dillon." He studied her for a moment, this woman who stood in the blazing June heat holding a stranger's child with such tenderness. "Can you ride?" "Yes, though it has been a while." "You will ride with me. It will be faster and I can make sure you do not fall." He swung up into the saddle, then reached down for her. "Hand me the baby first." Rebecca hesitated, her arms tightening around Rose. "I have got her." "Miss Turner, I need both hands to help you up, and you need both hands to mount. One of us has to hold her, and I am already in the saddle." Logic won out, and Rebecca carefully handed the baby up to Samuel. He cradled her with surprising gentleness for a man with such rough, calloused hands. The baby quieted, perhaps responding to his calm demeanor. Rebecca used the stirrup to pull herself up, and Samuel shifted Rose to one arm while offering his other hand. With a boost, Rebecca settled behind him in the saddle. "You will need to hold on," Samuel said, carefully transferring Rose back to Rebecca's arms. "And hold her tight." Rebecca wrapped one arm around Samuel's waist, feeling the solid warmth of him through his shirt. It was improper, certainly, but these were extraordinary circumstances. Rose whimpered against her chest. "We will get her fed soon, little one," Rebecca murmured, and Samuel felt something shift in his chest at the gentleness in her voice. They rode north at a steady pace, not too fast for fear of jarring the baby or unseating Rebecca, but quick enough to make good time. The Montana landscape stretched endlessly around them, golden grass dotted with sage, mountains rising purple in the distance. The sun beat down mercilessly, and Samuel could feel Rebecca wilting against his back as the miles passed. "Tell me about yourself," Samuel said after an hour of silence broken only by Rose's occasional fussing. "Keep yourself awake." "There is not much to tell," Rebecca said, her voice tired. "I am from Pennsylvania originally. My father was a minister. He and my mother both died of fever 2 years ago. I am sorry. Thank you. I have been working as a governess since then, but I wanted something more permanent. When I saw the advertisement for a teacher in Dillon, it seemed like fate, a fresh start in a new place." She laughed softly, bitterly. "Though I did not expect to arrive like this." "Life rarely goes as we expect," Samuel said. "I came out here 5 years ago thinking I would make my fortune in silver. Turned out I was better at keeping the peace than mining." "You like it, being a deputy?" Samuel considered the question. "Most days, it is good work helping people, though there are hard days too. Like today." "Like today," he agreed. "What made you decide to take the baby? You could have left her with the bodies. Someone would have found them eventually." Rebecca was quiet for so long that Samuel thought she might not answer. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but fierce. "Mrs. Henderson was dying, and she knew it. She looked at me with such desperation and asked if I had children. When I said no, she begged me to take Rose. She said her husband was dead, killed in a mining accident 6 months ago, and she was traveling to Dillon to live with her sister. She made me promise that I would find her sister, that I would not let Rose go to an orphanage." Rebecca's arm tightened around the baby. "How could I refuse a dying woman's last wish? How could I leave this innocent child alone?" "You could have," Samuel said quietly. "Most people would have. It would have been easier." "I could not leave her," Rebecca said firmly. "I just could not." Samuel felt those words settle into his bones like something inevitable. "Neither could I," he said, and he meant it. Looking down at the tiny face visible above the pink blanket, feeling Rebecca's arm around his waist and the trust she had already placed in him, he knew he was committed to seeing this through. They reached Dillon as the sun was beginning its descent toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The town was small but thriving, built along the Beaverhead River with the main street lined with businesses, a hotel, a general store, a saloon, and the sheriff's office. Samuel guided his horse straight to the doctor's house at the edge of town. Dr. Morrison was a gruff man in his 50s who took one look at the baby and immediately sent his wife to fetch Mrs. Chen. While they waited, he examined Rebecca, checking her over for injuries she might not have noticed in her shock. "You are lucky," he said, washing his hands in a basin. "Bruised and exhausted, but nothing broken. You will be sore tomorrow." Mrs. Chen arrived within minutes, a petite Chinese woman with a gentle smile and a baby of her own on her hip. Her English was accented but clear. "You need help with baby." Rebecca explained the situation quickly, her voice breaking when she mentioned Mrs. Henderson's death. Mrs. Chen listened carefully, then nodded. "I can feed her," she said simply. "My son is good eater, I have plenty milk, but baby needs more than food, needs home, needs mother." "She has a sister in town," Samuel interjected. "Mrs. Henderson said her sister lives in Dillon. We just need to find her." "What is sister's name?" Dr. Morrison asked. "I do not know," Rebecca admitted, looking stricken. "Mrs. Henderson died before she could tell me. All I know is that she was coming to Dillon to live with her sister." Samuel straightened. "Henderson is not a common name. Someone in town will know. I will ask around. In the meantime, Miss Turner, you need rest. Doctor, can she stay here tonight?" "My wife can make up the spare room," the doctor agreed. "No," Rebecca said firmly, still holding Rose even though the baby was now screaming with hunger. "I stay with Rose, I promised." Mrs. Chen smiled warmly. "Then you both come to my house. I feed baby, you eat too, you sleep. Tomorrow we find sister." Samuel watched as Rebecca finally, reluctantly, handed the baby to Mrs. Chen. The Chinese woman immediately began nursing Rose, who latched on desperately. The silence that followed the baby's satisfied feeding sounds was profound. "Thank you," Rebecca whispered, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. "Thank you so much." "Come," Mrs. Chen said gently. "You need food and bath. Deputy Jennings, you tell husband Chen where I am." "I will tell him right now," Samuel promised. He caught Rebecca's eye. "Get some rest." "I will find Henderson's sister." "What about the bodies?" Rebecca asked quietly. "You said you would go back." "I will take some men out at first light. We will bring them back properly." He settled his hat more firmly on his head. "You did a brave thing today, Miss Turner. Mrs. Henderson chose well." Rebecca's cheeks colored slightly. "I only did what anyone would do." "No," Samuel said, holding her gaze. "You did not. Most people would have saved themselves and left the baby. You chose the harder path. That says something about who you are." He left before she could respond, stepping out into the cooling evening air. His stomach was tight with an unfamiliar feeling, something that had been growing since he first saw her standing by that wrecked stagecoach. He shook his head as if to clear it. He had work to do. The general store was his first stop. Mrs. Patterson, who ran it with her husband, knew everyone in Dillon and most of the surrounding ranches. "Henderson," she repeated, frowning thoughtfully. "We have got the Henderson family that runs the feed store, but they are all accounted for." "Wait, did you say a sister?" "Would that be Marion? Marion Fuller, I mean. She was a Henderson before she married. Her husband runs the boarding house on 3rd Street. Samuel felt relief wash through him. "That must be it. Thank you, Mrs. Patterson." He found the boarding house easily, a neat 2-story building with a well-kept garden out front. Marion Fuller answered his knock, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and flour on her apron. "Deputy Jennings." "Is something wrong, Mrs. Fuller? Did you have a sister named Henderson?" "Married to a minor." Marion's face went pale. Catherine Henderson. "Why, what has happened?" Samuel removed his hat. "I am very sorry, madam. There was an accident with the stagecoach. Your sister did not survive." Marion swayed, and Samuel caught her elbow, guiding her to sit on the porch step. Her husband appeared in the doorway, alerted by his wife's cry of distress. Samuel explained the situation again, watching as the couple absorbed the terrible news. "And the baby?" Marion asked, her voice thick with tears. "Rose? Where is Rose?" "She is safe. A woman named Rebecca Turner was on the coach with your sister. Catherine asked her to take care of Rose before she died. Miss Turner brought her to town. Mrs. Chen is feeding her now." "I want to see her," Marion said immediately, standing. "I want to see my niece right now." "Of course," Samuel said. "I will take you there." The reunion at Mrs. Chen's house was emotional. Marion wept as she held Rose, the baby now clean and fed and sleeping peacefully. Rebecca watched from a chair by the window, her face drawn with exhaustion. "Thank you," Marion said to Rebecca, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for saving her. Catherine wrote me that she was coming, but I did not know when to expect her. If you had not been there, if you had not cared for Rose, I cannot imagine." "Your sister loved her very much," Rebecca said softly. "She wanted to make sure Rose was safe. That was her last thought." Marion clutched the baby tighter. "I will take her home now. She will be loved, I promise. My husband and I, we have been trying for years to have a child. Rose will be our daughter now, if that is what Catherine wanted." "It was," Rebecca assured her. "She wanted family to raise her." Samuel watched Rebecca's face as Marion prepared to leave with Rose. He saw the loss there, the way her hands clenched in her lap as the baby was carried out the door. In just a few hours, she had bonded with the child, and now that bond was being severed. It was necessary, it was right, but it was not easy. After they left, Mrs. Chen touched Rebecca's shoulder gently. "You did good thing. Baby will be happy with her aunt." "I know," Rebecca said, but her voice was hollow. "Come," Mrs. Chen said. "I show you where to sleep. Tomorrow is new day." Samuel bid them good night and walked back to the boarding house where he kept a room. Sheriff Dalton would want a full report in the morning, and Samuel needed to organize a recovery party for the bodies. But as he lay in his narrow bed that night, he found his thoughts returning not to the robbery or the accident, but to green eyes full of determination, and a woman who could not leave an orphaned baby behind. The next morning, Samuel rode out with 4 men, including the undertaker. They found the stagecoach exactly as he had left it, the bodies starting to bloat in the heat. It was grim work, loading them onto the wagon, searching through the wreckage for anything that might be useful or meaningful. Samuel found a locket around Catherine Henderson's neck and pocketed it carefully for Marion. They also found the strongbox, empty and broken open. The robbers had gotten what they wanted. Samuel studied the tracks leading away from the scene. 3 horses, heading west into rough country. He would track them, but not today. Today was for the dead. It was late afternoon by the time they returned to Dillon. Samuel went first to the undertaker's to arrange for the burials, then to the boarding house to deliver the locket to Marion. She wept again when he placed it in her hands, thanking him over and over. "Has Miss Turner come to see Rose?" Samuel asked. "Not yet," Marion said. "I sent a message to Mrs. Chen's house this morning, inviting her to visit any time, but I have not heard back. Perhaps she is resting." Samuel frowned. Something about that did not sit right with him. He thanked Marion and made his way to Mrs. Chen's house. Mrs. Chen answered his knock, her baby on her hip as always. "Deputy Jennings, Miss Turner not here." "Where did she go? She leave this morning?" "Say she find hotel, look for teaching job, she not want to burden me." Mrs. Chen looked troubled. "She very sad about baby. I think she need friend." Samuel felt that tightness in his chest again. "Did she say which hotel?" "No, but only 2 hotels in Dillon." "She probably go to cheaper one, the Mountain View." Samuel tipped his hat and headed straight for the Mountain View Hotel, a modest establishment near the train depot. The clerk confirmed that Rebecca Turner had taken a room that morning. "Is she in now?" Samuel asked. "I believe so." "Room 7, top of the stairs." Samuel took the steps 2 at a time, then paused outside room 7, suddenly uncertain. He had no real reason to be here, no official business. But he raised his hand and knocked anyway. "Who is it?" Rebecca's voice came through the door, cautious. "Deputy Jennings, Samuel Jennings." There was a pause, then the sound of footsteps. The door opened and Rebecca stood there in a simple gray dress, her hair pulled back severely. She looked pale and tired. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "Is Rose all right?" "Rose is fine. Her Aunt Marion is caring for her. I delivered some of her mother's belongings to them this afternoon." Samuel hesitated. "I wanted to check on you, make sure you were settling in all right." "That is kind of you, but I am fine. I have a room, and tomorrow I will speak to the town council about the teaching position." "Have you eaten today?" Rebecca looked away. "I was not very hungry." "Miss Turner, you went through a terrible ordeal yesterday. You need to take care of yourself." Samuel made a decision. "Have dinner with me. The hotel restaurant is decent and you should not be alone tonight. Deputy Jennings, I do not think that would be appropriate." "Why not?" "I am asking as a friend, not as a man courting you." "Though if I were courting you, dinner would still be appropriate with a chaperone, and I assure you, half the town will be in that dining room." He softened his voice. "Please, you saved a baby's life yesterday. Let someone take care of you for an evening." Rebecca studied his face, and Samuel had the sense she was seeing right through him, reading things he had not yet admitted to himself. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but I am paying for my own meal." "We will discuss that later," Samuel said with a small smile. The hotel dining room was indeed busy, filled with travelers and locals alike. Samuel guided Rebecca to a table by the window, where they could see the street outside as it settled into evening. They ordered simple fare, beef stew and bread, and for a while they ate in comfortable silence. "Tell me about Dillon," Rebecca said eventually. "If I am to teach here, I should know more about the town." Samuel leaned back in his chair. "It is a good town, growing but not too fast. We have got silver mines in the hills that keep things prosperous, ranches all around, and the river brings in trade. The people are decent, mostly. We have our share of trouble, same as anywhere, but it is manageable." "What kind of trouble?" "Claim jumping, mostly. Some rustling. The occasional robbery, like the one that led to your stagecoach being chased." Samuel's expression darkened. "I will catch those men." "Mrs. Henderson and the driver would still be alive if not for them," Rebecca said quietly. "I know, and they will answer for that." Samuel changed the subject deliberately. "What made you want to teach?" Rebecca's face brightened slightly. "My mother was a teacher before she married my father. She taught me at home until I was old enough for proper school. I loved learning, loved the way knowledge could open up the world. After my parents died, I wanted to do something meaningful with my life. Teaching seemed right." "The town will be lucky to have you," Samuel said, and he meant it. "We have had 3 teachers in the past 2 years. None of them lasted. The job is not easy, especially out here." "Why did they leave?" "First one could not handle the isolation. Second one married a rancher within 6 months. Third one claimed the students were too rough and headed back east." Samuel studied her. "I do not think you will run from a challenge, though." "What makes you say that?" "You stood by a wrecked stagecoach holding a stranger's baby in 100-degree heat. You did not panic, you did not fall apart. You did what needed doing." He met her eyes. "That takes strength." Rebecca flushed, looking down at her stew. "I was terrified. Bravery is not the absence of fear. It is doing what is right despite the fear." They talked until the dining room began to empty, ranging over topics both serious and light. Samuel found himself fascinated by her mind, the way she thought about things, her curiosity about the world. He told her about his own past, growing up in Ohio, the restlessness that had driven him west, the satisfaction he had found in his work as a lawman. "You ever miss Ohio?" Rebecca asked. "Sometimes I miss my mother's cooking," Samuel admitted with a grin. "But no, not really. This is my home now. Montana has a way of getting into your blood." "I can see that," Rebecca said, looking out the window at the mountains silhouetted against the darkening sky. "It is beautiful here, harsh but beautiful." "Like a lot of things worth having," Samuel said, and there was something in his voice that made Rebecca look at him sharply. "Deputy Jennings." "Samuel," he corrected gently. "After what we went through yesterday, I think we can use first names." "Samuel," Rebecca said, testing the name. "I appreciate your kindness, but I need you to understand something. I came here to teach, to build a life for myself. I am not looking for complications." "Who said anything about complications?" Samuel asked, though they both knew what she meant. "I saw how you looked at me just now. And I need to be honest with you. I am not ready for whatever you might be thinking." Rebecca's voice was firm but not unkind. "I buried my parents 2 years ago. I have been alone since then, finding my own way. I need to keep doing that." Samuel nodded slowly. "I respect that. But I am not going to apologize for finding you interesting, Rebecca. You can build your life and still have friends. You can be independent and still let people care about you." "Is that what this is? Friendship?" "It is a start," Samuel said, "and who knows where it might lead. But I am a patient man. I can wait." Rebecca shook her head, but she was almost smiling. "You are very sure of yourself." "I am sure about what I see in front of me. A smart, brave, kind woman who risked herself for a child she did not know. That is not common, Rebecca. That is rare. And yes, I would like to know you better. If all that becomes is friendship, I will count myself lucky." They parted at the stairs, Samuel watching as Rebecca climbed to her room. He knew he should probably examine his own feelings more carefully, question why he was so drawn to a woman he had known for barely a day. But some things did not require analysis. Some things just were. The next morning, Samuel was in the sheriff's office when Rebecca came to make her statement about the stagecoach accident. She looked rested, more color in her cheeks, her hair neatly pinned. She recounted everything that had happened, and Sheriff Dalton took careful notes. "You did well, Miss Turner," the sheriff said when she finished. "Not many people would have kept their heads like you did." "Deputy Jennings was very helpful," Rebecca said, glancing at Samuel. "He is a good man," Sheriff Dalton agreed. "Now about these robbers. You said you could identify them." "I think so. I only saw them briefly, but I remember their faces." Samuel leaned forward. "What did they look like?" Rebecca described 3 men, one tall and thin with a scar on his cheek, one shorter and broad with a missing tooth, and one young, maybe 20, with red hair and freckles. Samuel and the sheriff exchanged glances. "The Garrett brothers and their cousin," the sheriff said grimly. "Been causing trouble for months. We ran them out of town last winter, but they keep coming back." "I am going after them," Samuel said. "Not alone, you are not," Sheriff Dalton said. "I will wire the marshal in Butte, see if we can get some help. These boys are mean, Samuel. They have killed before." "They killed a driver and caused a woman's death yesterday," Samuel said flatly. "They are not walking away from that." Rebecca stood. "I should go. I have an appointment with the school board this afternoon." "Good luck," Samuel said. "Though I am sure you will not need it." After she left, Sheriff Dalton gave Samuel a knowing look. "She is pretty." "She is brave," Samuel corrected. "She can be both. Just be careful, Samuel. You have got a soft heart under that badge, and soft hearts get broken." "I will keep that in mind," Samuel said dryly. He spent the rest of the day tracking down leads on the Garrett brothers, talking to people who might have seen them, checking abandoned cabins in the hills. It was frustrating work with few results. The men seemed to have vanished like smoke. It was late when he finally made it to the boarding house for supper. He was surprised to find Rebecca there, sitting with Marion Fuller and little Rose. The baby was awake and alert, and Rebecca was holding her with a tenderness that made Samuel's chest ache. "Samuel," Marion greeted him warmly. "Come join us." Miss Turner was just telling me about her interview with the school board. How did it go? Samuel asked, sitting down across from Rebecca. They offered me the position, Rebecca said, and there was genuine happiness in her smile. I start next month. That will give me time to prepare the curriculum and settle in properly. Congratulations, Samuel said, meaning it. The children here need a good teacher. I am going to do my best. Rebecca looked down at Rose, and I will be able to watch this little one grow up. You are welcome here anytime, Marion said firmly. Rose owes her life to you. You are family now as far as I am concerned. Rebecca's eyes grew shiny, but she blinked the tears back. That means more than you know. They shared supper together, a simple but hearty meal that Marion had prepared. The conversation flowed easily, touching on town gossip, the upcoming 4th of July celebration, plans for the school. Samuel found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did, enjoying the domestic warmth of the scene. After the meal, he walked Rebecca back to her hotel. The summer evening was mild, the sky turning deep purple overhead, stars beginning to emerge. You looked happy tonight, Samuel observed. I was happy, Rebecca admitted. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I might belong somewhere. I have a job, I am making friends. It is more than I had hoped for when I left Pennsylvania. What about Rose? Does it hurt seeing her with Marion? Rebecca was quiet for a moment. Yes and no. It hurts because I got attached to her so quickly, but I am glad she is with family, with people who will love her. That is what her mother wanted. That is what matters. You have a good heart, Rebecca Turner. So do you, Samuel Jennings. She stopped at the hotel steps, turning to face him. Thank you for being so kind to me. You did not have to be, especially with everything else you have to deal with. There is nowhere else I would rather be, Samuel said honestly. Rebecca studied his face in the lamplight. You are making it very hard for me to keep my distance. Good, Samuel said with a slight smile. That is the idea. I am serious, Samuel. I am not playing games with you. I genuinely do not know if I am ready for anything beyond friendship. Then we will be friends. And if it becomes something more, we will deal with that when it happens. But Rebecca, I am not going to pretend I do not feel something for you. I do. And I think you feel it too, even if you are not ready to acknowledge it. Rebecca opened her mouth, then closed it again. Finally, she said, you are a very frustrating man. I have been told that before. Samuel took a step back, giving her space. Get some rest. I am sure you have a lot to do tomorrow. When will you go after the Garrett brothers? Soon. I am still tracking their movements, figuring out where they might be holed up. Be careful, Rebecca said, and there was genuine worry in her voice. They are dangerous men. I will be careful, Samuel promised, but they have to answer for what they did. Justice matters out here, Rebecca. Without it, we are just chaos. I know, just come back safe. I will, Samuel said, and he hoped it was a promise he could keep. Over the next 2 weeks, Samuel found himself drawn into Rebecca's orbit in ways both subtle and profound. She came to the sheriff's office one day with a basket of sandwiches, claiming she had made too much and did not want them to go to waste. She attended church on Sunday and sat with Marion, but her eyes found Samuel's across the aisle more than once. She asked his advice about where to find supplies for the schoolroom, and Samuel introduced her to storekeepers and craftsmen who could help. They fell into a pattern of dinners together, sometimes at the hotel, sometimes at the boarding house with Marion and her husband. Samuel told himself it was just friendship, just helping a newcomer settle into town. But he was lying to himself, and he knew it. Every time Rebecca smiled at him, every time their hands accidentally brushed, every time she said his name in that particular way she had, soft and warm, he fell a little more. Rebecca, for her part, seemed to be waging an internal war. Samuel caught her watching him sometimes with an expression he could not quite read, something between longing and fear. She accepted his company but maintained careful boundaries, never letting conversations drift too far into personal territory, never allowing their goodnight farewells to linger. Then came the night of the 4th of July celebration. The whole town turned out for it, gathering in the park by the river for music and dancing and fireworks. Samuel found Rebecca standing at the edge of the crowd, watching the festivities with a wistful expression. "Not going to dance?" he asked, coming up beside her. She startled slightly, then smiled. "I do not know anyone to dance with." "You know me," Samuel pointed out. He offered his hand. "May I have this dance, Miss Turner?" Rebecca hesitated, and Samuel could see the war happening behind her eyes. Finally, she placed her hand in his. "Just one dance." He led her into the crowd of swirling couples, finding a spot where they could move without bumping into people. The band was playing a waltz, slow and sweet, and Samuel placed his hand carefully on Rebecca's waist, keeping a respectable distance. They began to move, and Samuel was surprised by how well they fit together, how naturally she followed his lead. "You dance well," Rebecca said, looking up at him. "My mother insisted I learn. She said a gentleman should know how to conduct himself at a social gathering." "Your mother sounds like a wise woman." "She was. She is," Samuel corrected. "It has been a few years since I have seen her, but she writes regularly. She keeps asking when I am going to settle down, give her grandchildren." "And what do you tell her?" "That I am working on it," Samuel said, his eyes not leaving Rebecca's face. Rebecca's breath caught slightly. "Samuel, I know you are not ready. You need time. You want to focus on your teaching." Samuel pulled her slightly closer, still respectable but more intimate. "But Rebecca, I need you to know something. I am falling in love with you. Maybe I already have, and I am not going to apologize for that or try to hide it." "You barely know me," Rebecca whispered, but she did not pull away. "I know enough. I know you have more courage in your little finger than most men have in their whole bodies. I know you are kind and smart and stubborn. I know you keep your promises even when they are hard. I know that when you smile, really smile, it feels like the sun coming out." Samuel's voice was low and earnest. "I know that every time I see you, I want it to last longer, and I know that I would wait a lifetime if that is what you needed." Rebecca's eyes were shining with unshed tears. "What if I cannot give you what you want? What if I am too broken from losing my parents, from being alone?" "You are not broken," Samuel said firmly. "You are healing. There is a difference. And you are not alone anymore, Rebecca. You have friends here. You have Marion and Mrs. Chen and me. You have a whole town that is ready to accept you. You just have to let us in." The music swelled around them, and Rebecca laid her head against Samuel's chest, just for a moment. He could feel her trembling slightly, and he tightened his arm around her waist. "I am scared," she admitted, so quietly he almost did not hear her. "So am I," Samuel said honestly. "Love is terrifying, but it is also the best thing in the world, and I think if you give us a chance, we could be really good together." Rebecca lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "What if you are wrong? What if I am right?" They swayed together as the song ended, neither wanting to let go. Finally, Rebecca stepped back and Samuel reluctantly released her. "Thank you for the dance," Rebecca said, her voice shaky. "Anytime," Samuel said. "Rebecca, you do not have to decide anything tonight. I just wanted you to know how I feel. What you do with that information is up to you." Rebecca nodded, then disappeared into the crowd before Samuel could say anything else. He stood there for a long moment, watching the dancers spin past, feeling both hopeful and anxious. He had laid his cards on the table. Now all he could do was wait. The next day, Samuel got word that the Garrett brothers had been spotted at an abandoned mining camp in the hills west of town. He gathered a posse of 6 men, including Sheriff Dalton, and they rode out in the early morning. The mining camp was a collection of dilapidated buildings in a narrow canyon, perfect for an ambush. Samuel approached cautiously, spreading his men out to cover all exits. They waited until dawn was breaking, then moved in. The garrets did not go quietly. Gunfire erupted as the posse closed in, bullets pinging off rocks and wood. Samuel took cover behind a water trough, returning fire carefully. He saw the youngest garret, the red-headed one, make a run for the horses. Samuel shot low, hitting him in the leg. The boy went down screaming. It was over in less than 5 minutes. 2 of the brothers were dead, killed in the firefight. The youngest and the cousin were wounded but alive. Samuel searched the camp and found the money from the stagecoach strongbox, along with evidence of other robberies. "Good work," Sheriff Dalton said as they loaded the prisoners onto horses for the ride back to town. These men were getting bold. They would have killed again. Samuel nodded, but he felt no satisfaction. 2 more men were dead, and for what? Greed and stupidity. It was a waste. They arrived back in Dillon around noon. A crowd had gathered, drawn by the news of the capture. Samuel saw Rebecca standing on the hotel porch, her hand pressed to her mouth. When he dismounted, she hurried over. "Are you all right?" she asked, her eyes searching him for injuries. "I am fine, not a scratch on me." Samuel wanted to reach for her but was aware of all the eyes watching. "It is over. They will stand trial." "Good," Rebecca said fiercely. "They should pay for what they did." Samuel helped process the prisoners, gave his statement to the judge, and arranged for the bodies to be buried. It was evening before he was finally free. He found Rebecca waiting on a bench outside the sheriff's office. "I thought you would have gone back to the hotel," Samuel said, sitting down beside her. "I wanted to make sure you were all right, really all right, I mean." Rebecca turned to face him. "I was so worried. When you rode out this morning, I realized something." "What is that?" "That I would be devastated if something happened to you. That you have become important to me, more important than I wanted to admit." Rebecca took a deep breath. "I have been so focused on protecting myself from being hurt again that I did not realize I was also protecting myself from being happy." Samuel felt his heart start to race. "Rebecca, let me finish," she said quickly. "I thought about what you said last night, about love being terrifying but also the best thing in the world, and I realized you are right. I cannot live my whole life being afraid. My parents would not want that for me. They would want me to be happy, to take chances, to live fully." "What are you saying?" Rebecca reached out and took his hand, lacing her fingers through his. "I am saying that I am scared, but I want to try. I want to see where this goes. If you are still willing." Samuel brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles gently. "I am more than willing. Rebecca, I meant every word I said. I am falling in love with you." "I think I am falling in love with you too," Rebecca whispered. "It is terrifying." "It is," Samuel agreed. "But we will figure it out together. That is what people do when they care about each other. They figure it out." Rebecca smiled, and it was like the sun coming out, just like Samuel had said. "So, what happens now? Now I walk you back to your hotel like a gentleman. Tomorrow I come calling properly. We spend time together, we get to know each other even better. Eventually, if things go the way I think they will, I ask you to marry me. And you say yes." "You have this all planned out, do you?" Rebecca asked, amused. "I am a lawman. Planning is what I do." Samuel stood, pulling her to her feet but not letting go of her hand. "But I am also flexible. If you want to do things differently, we can." "No," Rebecca said softly. "I like your plan, though you are very confident that I will say yes when you propose." "I am confident that we have something special. The rest will work itself out." Samuel tucked her hand into the crook of his arm and began walking toward the hotel. "Tell me about your plans for the school. What are you going to teach the children first?" They talked all the way to the hotel, easy and comfortable, the earlier tension replaced by something warmer and more certain. When they reached the steps, Samuel turned to face her. "May I kiss you?" he asked, his voice low. Rebecca's eyes widened slightly. Then she nodded, just a small dip of her chin. Samuel cupped her face gently in his hands, giving her time to change her mind. When she did not pull away, he leaned in and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was soft and sweet, a promise of things to come. Rebecca's hands came up to rest on his chest, and he felt her sigh against his mouth. When they parted, both were breathing a little harder. Samuel rested his forehead against hers. "I have wanted to do that since the moment I saw you standing by that stagecoach," he admitted. "Really? Even covered in dust and holding a screaming baby, especially then." Samuel kissed her forehead, then forced himself to step back. "I will see you tomorrow. Sleep well, Rebecca." "You too, Samuel." He watched her climb the stairs and disappear into the hotel, then turned and headed for the boarding house with a lightness in his step he had not felt in years. Things were finally falling into place. Over the next month, Samuel and Rebecca's relationship deepened and grew. He came calling 3 times a week, bringing her flowers or books he thought she might enjoy. They took walks along the river, talking about everything and nothing. He introduced her to his friends, and she fit seamlessly into the social fabric of the town. Marion and her husband became close friends to both of them, and little Rose thrived in her aunt's care, growing plump and happy. Rebecca threw herself into preparing for the school year, and Samuel helped her clean and organize the one-room schoolhouse at the edge of town. They painted the walls together, repaired broken desks, and hung new curtains. It was domestic and comfortable, and Samuel could easily imagine a lifetime of such shared tasks. "What are you thinking about?" Rebecca asked one afternoon as they worked. She had paint on her nose, and Samuel found it adorable. "I am thinking about the future," Samuel said honestly. "About you and me, about what our life could look like." Rebecca set down her paintbrush. "And what does it look like?" "Happy," Samuel said simply. "We are happy. We have a home, maybe some children eventually. You teach, I keep the peace. We grow old together." "That sounds nice," Rebecca said softly. "Really nice." "Nice enough to make official?" Samuel asked, and there was a question in his voice that made Rebecca's breath catch. "Are you asking what I think you are asking?" Samuel crossed the room to her, taking both her hands in his. "Rebecca Turner, I love you. I love your strength and your kindness and your stubborn determination. I love the way you care for people, the way you see the world. I love who I am when I am with you. I know we have not been together long by most people's standards, but I am certain about this. I am certain about us. Will you marry me?" Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes. Yes, Samuel, I will marry you." Samuel let out a whoop of joy and lifted her off her feet, spinning her around. When he set her down, he kissed her thoroughly, not caring that they were in full view of anyone who might pass by the schoolhouse. "I do not have a ring yet," Samuel admitted. "I wanted to ask you properly first, then we can go pick one out together." "I do not need a ring to know this is real," Rebecca said, but she was glowing with happiness. "When should we get married?" "As soon as possible, as far as I am concerned. But I will wait as long as you need to plan whatever kind of wedding you want." Rebecca thought for a moment. "After the school year starts, I want to get the children settled first, make sure everything is running smoothly. Say October. That gives us 2 months to plan, and it will be beautiful here in the fall." "October it is," Samuel agreed. "Though I should warn you, these might be the longest 2 months of my life." "Mine too," Rebecca admitted, going up on her toes to kiss him again. They told Marion and her husband that evening, and the news spread through Dillon like wildfire. Everyone seemed genuinely happy for them, offering congratulations and help with wedding planning. Mrs. Chen insisted on making Rebecca's wedding dress, and the owner of the hotel offered his dining room for the reception. It was overwhelming and wonderful. The school year began in September, and Rebecca proved to be everything Samuel had known she would be as a teacher. She was patient but firm with the students, creative in her lessons, and genuinely cared about each child's success. Samuel stopped by the schoolhouse most afternoons to walk her home, and he loved listening to her talk about her students, their progress and struggles. "You are glowing," he told her one afternoon as they walked hand in hand through town. "I am happy," Rebecca said simply. "Happier than I ever thought I could be again. A year ago I was alone and grieving and lost. Now I have you, I have friends, I have work I love. It feels like a miracle." "Not a miracle," Samuel said. "Just life, the way it is supposed to be." "I wish my parents could have met you," Rebecca said wistfully. "They would have liked you." "I wish I could have met them too. They raised an extraordinary woman." The wedding took place on a perfect October afternoon, with the aspens turning gold on the mountainsides and the air crisp and clear. Rebecca wore a simple but elegant dress of cream-colored silk that Mrs. Chen had sewn with exquisite care. Samuel wore his best suit, his hair slicked back, looking almost nervous for the first time since Rebecca had known him. The ceremony was held in the church, with half the town in attendance. Marian stood up as Rebecca's maid of honor, holding baby Rose, who cooed and gurgled throughout the vows. Sheriff Dalton served as Samuel's best man, looking pleased as punch with the whole affair. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Samuel kissed Rebecca with a tenderness that made several of the older women in the congregation sigh audibly. As they walked back down the aisle together, Rebecca felt a completeness she had not even known she was missing. This was her family now, these people. This was her home. The reception was boisterous and joyful, with music and dancing and more food than seemed possible. Samuel danced with his new wife again and again, never wanting to let her go. When they finally left for the small house on the edge of town that Samuel had purchased as a surprise wedding gift, it was late evening and Rebecca was exhausted but glowing. "Ready to see your wedding present?" Samuel asked as they approached the house. "You got me a present. Samuel, you did not have to do that." "Well, technically it is for both of us, but I bought it with you in mind." He led her up to the front door and produced a key with a flourish. "Welcome home, Mrs. Jennings." Rebecca opened the door and gasped. The house was small but perfect, with a cozy sitting room, a kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and a front porch that looked out toward the mountains. It had been furnished with simple but sturdy pieces, and there were flowers in vases on every surface. "Samuel," Rebecca breathed, "it is beautiful, you like it. I love it." She turned to him, tears in her eyes. "I love you. I love you too," Samuel said, sweeping her into his arms. "Now let me carry my wife over the threshold properly." He did, and they spent their wedding night in their new home, in their new life, together at last. The winter was mild that year, and Samuel and Rebecca settled into married life with an ease that surprised them both. Rebecca continued teaching, and Samuel continued his work as deputy. But their evenings were spent together, cooking dinner, reading by the fire, talking about their days. They made friends with other young couples in town, hosted dinners, attended church socials. It was ordinary and domestic and perfect. In January, Rebecca realized she was pregnant. She told Samuel one evening after dinner, nervous and excited all at once. "Are you sure?" Samuel asked, his eyes wide. "As sure as I can be without seeing the doctor. But yes, I am sure." Rebecca took his hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby, Samuel." Samuel's face broke into the biggest smile Rebecca had ever seen. He dropped to his knees in front of her chair, pressing his face against her stomach. "Hello in there, little one. This is your father. I cannot wait to meet you." Rebecca laughed, running her fingers through his hair. "We should wait a bit before telling people, just to be safe." "Whatever you want," Samuel agreed. "But Rebecca, I am so happy I could burst." "Me too," she whispered. "I did not think I could be this happy, not after losing my parents. I thought that kind of joy was behind me." "We make our own joy," Samuel said, looking up at her. "You and me, we are building something here. A family. A life. And it is going to be good, Rebecca, I promise you that." And it was good. Rebecca taught through the spring, hiding her growing belly under loose dresses. When the school year ended, she announced her pregnancy to the town, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. Mrs. Chen brought over baby clothes, Marion gave her advice on motherhood, and the women of the town organized a quilting bee to make blankets for the new baby. Their son was born on a hot August afternoon, screaming his lungs out and healthy as could be. They named him Thomas after Rebecca's father, and Samuel cried when he held his son for the first time. "He is perfect," Samuel said, his voice choked with emotion. "Rebecca, you are amazing." "Look what you did." "We did," Rebecca corrected, exhausted but beaming. "Together." Little Rose, now 2 years old and toddling everywhere, was fascinated by the new baby. She visited often with Marion, patting Thomas's head gently and offering him her favorite toys. It was clear the two children would grow up as close as cousins, maybe closer. Rebecca took a year off from teaching to care for Thomas, and Samuel found himself rushing home every evening to spend time with his family. Fatherhood suited him in ways he had not expected. He loved the weight of his son in his arms, the milky smell of him, the way Thomas would track him with his eyes across the room. "You are a good father," Rebecca told him one evening as they sat on their porch, watching the sun set behind the mountains. Thomas was asleep in her arms and Samuel had his arm around her shoulders. "I am trying," Samuel said. "I want to be the kind of father my son can be proud of, the kind who is there, who cares, who shows up." "You already are," Rebecca assured him. "Thomas is lucky to have you, we both are." When Thomas was 6 months old, Rebecca decided to return to teaching, and they hired a young woman named Elizabeth to help with childcare during school hours. It was an adjustment, but they made it work. Samuel helped more with the household chores, taking on cooking and cleaning in the evenings so Rebecca could rest. They were partners in every sense of the word. 2 years later, their daughter was born, a tiny thing with Rebecca's green eyes and Samuel's dark hair. They named her Catherine, after Rose's mother, the woman whose death had brought Samuel and Rebecca together. It felt right, honoring the tragedy that had led to their joy. Rose was 4 now and appointed herself Catherine's protector, much to everyone's amusement. She would sit by the baby's cradle for hours, singing to her and making sure she had her blanket. The bond between the two girls was instant and deep. You ever think about that day? Rebecca asked Samuel one night as they lay in bed, Catherine asleep in a bassinet beside them and Thomas snoring softly in the next room. "The day we met, all the time," Samuel admitted. "How different my life would be if I had not been tracking those robbers that day, if I had not found you. I think about what Mrs. Henderson said, how she asked me to take care of Rose. At the time it felt like such a burden, such a huge responsibility. But looking back, I think she gave me a gift. She brought me to you." "She brought you to your life," Samuel said. "To teaching, to Dillon, to me. But you are the one who chose to stay, who chose to build something here. That was all you, Rebecca." "I could not leave her," Rebecca said softly, echoing the words she had spoken that day by the wrecked stagecoach. "I could not leave Rose." "Neither could I," Samuel said, pulling her close. "Neither could I." They lay in comfortable silence for a while, listening to their children breathe, feeling the warmth of each other's presence. Their life was not always easy. Samuel still dealt with dangerous men as part of his job. Rebecca still struggled sometimes with the loss of her parents. Money was occasionally tight and children were exhausting. But they had each other and they had their family, and that was more than enough. Years passed, marked by the rhythms of small-town life. Thomas started school under his mother's tutelage, proving to be as curious and determined as she was. Catherine followed a few years later, quieter than her brother but no less bright. Rose, technically their niece but functionally their daughter in many ways, grew into a lovely young woman who helped teach the younger children at the school. Samuel was promoted to sheriff when Sheriff Dalton retired, a position he held with the same integrity and dedication he had brought to being a deputy. Rebecca became known throughout the territory as one of the best teachers in Montana, receiving offers to work in larger towns that she always turned down. Dillon was their home, and they had no interest in leaving. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Samuel and Rebecca took a rare evening to themselves, leaving the children with Marion. They rode out to the place where they had first met, where the old stagecoach route curved through the scrubland. "You remember what I was thinking when I first saw you?" Samuel asked as they sat on a blanket watching the sun set. "Tell me," Rebecca said, leaning against his shoulder. "I was thinking that something was wrong with the picture. A woman, alone with a baby by a wrecked stagecoach. It did not make sense. And then you looked at me with those green eyes, so fierce and determined, and I felt something shift in my chest, like my whole life had been leading to that moment. I thought you were going to arrest me," Rebecca admitted with a laugh. "I did not know what you would think finding me there. But then you helped me, you got us to safety, and I started to think maybe I could trust you." "Best decision you ever made," Samuel teased. "Second best," Rebecca corrected. "The first was not leaving Rose. If I had not made that choice, I would never have met you. My whole life would be different. Do you ever regret it, choosing the harder path?" Rebecca turned to look at him fully, her eyes serious. "Not for one single second. That choice gave me everything, Samuel. You, our children, this life. I would make the same choice again in a heartbeat." Samuel kissed her, soft and lingering. "I love you, Rebecca Jennings." "I love you too, Samuel Jennings." They sat together as the stars came out, talking about their children and their dreams for the future. Thomas wanted to be a lawman like his father. Catherine wanted to be a teacher like her mother. Rose was talking about marrying a young rancher who had been courting her properly. It was all unfolding exactly as it should. When they finally rode back to town, Samuel reached over and took Rebecca's hand. "You know what the best part of all this is?" "What?" "We still have so many years ahead of us, so many more adventures, so many more memories to make. This is not the end of our story, Rebecca. It is just the middle." "I like the sound of that," Rebecca said, squeezing his hand. "The middle of our story, with so much more to come, and there was so much more to come." They watched their children grow and marry and have children of their own. Rose married her rancher and had 4 children, all of whom called Samuel and Rebecca Grandma and Grandpa, right alongside Marion and her husband. Thomas did become a lawman, taking over as deputy under his father and eventually becoming sheriff himself when Samuel finally retired. Catherine became a teacher in the next town over, marrying a kind man who supported her work and gave her 3 beautiful children. Samuel and Rebecca grew old together, their hair going gray, their faces lining with age and laughter. They spent their retirement puttering around their house, tending a garden, babysitting grandchildren, and sitting on their porch in the evenings, watching the sun set behind the mountains. "Do you remember," Rebecca said one evening when they were both well into their 60s, "what you said to me the night we got engaged?" "I said a lot of things that night," Samuel said with a smile. Which part? You said you could see our future. That we would be happy, that we would grow old together. You were right. I usually am, Samuel teased, earning himself a gentle swat on the arm. I am serious. You saw what we could be, even when I was too scared to see it myself. You believed in us. Samuel took her hand, pressing a kiss to her knuckles just like he had that first night so many years ago. I believed in you, Rebecca. You just needed to believe in yourself. I am glad I did, Rebecca said softly. I am glad I took that chance, glad I could not leave her. Glad you could not either. Neither could I, Samuel agreed, pulling her close. Neither could I. They sat together as the stars came out, just like they had on their anniversary all those years ago. And if their children and grandchildren who stopped by later that evening found them asleep on the porch swing, wrapped in each other's arms and smiling in their sleep, no one was surprised. That was just how Samuel and Rebecca were, together until the very end and even beyond. Their love story a testament to the power of choosing bravery over fear, of taking chances, of saying yes to life even when it was terrifying. In the end, it all came back to that moment on a hot June day in 1876, when a deputy found a woman holding a baby that was not hers, and she said she could not leave her. He said neither could he. And in that simple exchange, in that shared moment of compassion and commitment, two lives were changed forever. Two people who had been alone found each other. Two hearts that had been closed opened up. And a love story that would span decades and generations began. The town of Dillon never forgot them. Long after Samuel and Rebecca had passed, their story was told and retold, a reminder that sometimes the hardest choices lead to the greatest blessings, that sometimes tragedy brings unexpected gifts, that love can bloom in the most unlikely circumstances if you are brave enough to let it. And little Rose, who grew into Rosemary Fuller, the woman who ran the boarding house after her Aunt Marion passed, would tell anyone who asked about the day her life was saved by a stranger's kindness. About how that kindness rippled out, touching so many lives, creating a legacy of love and family that continued long after the people involved were gone. Because that is what love does. It ripples out. It touches people. It changes the world, one small act of compassion at a time. And it all started with a woman who could not leave a baby behind and a man who could not leave them both. Together, they built something beautiful. Together, they created a love story for the ages. And together, they proved that sometimes the best things in life come from the hardest choices, and that true love is worth every risk, every fear, every moment of doubt. Samuel and Rebecca's house still stood at the edge of Dillon well into the 20th century, a landmark and a reminder. Their grandchildren and great-grandchildren would visit it, would touch the porch railing where Samuel and Rebecca had spent so many evenings, would stand in the kitchen where Rebecca had cooked countless meals, would imagine the laughter and love that had filled those rooms. And they would feel grateful, grateful for the choices their grandparents had made, grateful for the love that had brought their family into being. In the end, that is all any of us can hope for, to love and be loved, to make choices that matter, to build something that lasts beyond our own brief time on earth. Samuel and Rebecca did that. They found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. They chose each other every single day, and they created a legacy of love that would endure. And it all began with a simple choice, a moral imperative that Rebecca could not ignore. I could not leave her, neither could I. 6 words that changed everything. 6 words that created a family. 6 words that proved beyond any doubt that love is the most powerful force in the world. And that sometimes, the best things in life come from simply doing the right thing, even when it is hard, even when it is scary, even when you do not know where it will lead, because you never know. You never know what blessing might be hiding in the difficulty, what joy might be waiting on the other side of fear. Samuel and Rebecca learned that lesson on a hot June day in Montana, and they lived it every day for the rest of their lives. And in doing so, they became exactly what the world needs more of. People who choose compassion over convenience, who choose love over fear, who choose to show up and do the right thing, no matter what. Their love story was not just about romance, though there was plenty of that. It was about character, about integrity, about being the kind of people who make the world a better place, one choice at a time, and in the end, that is the greatest love story of all.